Was the story of Jesus copied from other previous religious stories prior to the Christian movement? Are there other stories similar to Jesus? There are reports online and by various authors that there were other ancient gods like Mithra, King Osiris, Dionysus, or Marduk who predated Jesus of Nazareth, who Christian writers stole from. But is there any truth to these claims? That is what we will be looking at in this video. We will be taking much of our information from a part in Lee Strobel's fantastic book, The Case for the Real Jesus, where he interviews Dr. Edwin Yamauchi, who is an expert in the field of the so-called copycat gods. Dr. Edwin Yamauchi has studied 22 languages and has written numerous books and articles. Let's start with Mithra. Also written Mithras, who is often the most popular of the bunch. The Mithra or Mithras meaning is the Zoroastrian divinity of covenant, light, and oath. So what is the tie between Mithra and Jesus? Writers have claimed that the pre-Christian god Mithra was born of a virgin in a cave on December 25th. Is it the story of Mithra that Jesus stole this from? They also claim Mithra was considered a great traveling teacher, had 12 disciples, promised his followers immortality, sacrificed himself for world peace, was buried in a tomb, and rose again 3 days later. And finally, they claim Mithra instituted a Eucharist or Lord's Supper and was considered the Logos, Redeemer, Messiah, and the way, the truth, and the life. Sound familiar? These are the claims, but are the claims true? Well, no. Let's get into it. Mithraism was a late Roman mystery religion that was popular among soldiers and merchants, and which became a chief rival to Christianity in the late 2nd century and later. Now, the participants met in a cave-like structure called a Mithraeum, which had its cult statue, Mithras, stabbing a bull, the so-called Pteroctony. Even though Mithras was a Persian god who was attested as early as the 14th century BC, we have almost no evidence of Mithraism in the sense of the mystery religion in the West that it becomes until very late, too late to have influenced the beginnings of Christianity. According to supporters of Mithra, Jesus stole the story, but let's get a few things out of the way. The first public recognition of the Mithras in Rome was the state visit of Tiridates, the king of Armenia in AD 66. However, this is not the same as Mithraism as a mystery religion. Mithraism as a mystery religion cannot be attested before about AD 90. Again, all New Testament scriptures are already written by around this time, which is about the time we see a Mithraic motif in a poem by Statius. No Mithraea or Mithraic temples have been found at Pompeii, which was destroyed by the eruption of Vesuvius in AD 79. The earliest Mithraic inscription in the West is a statue of a prefect under the Emperor Trajan in AD 101. The earliest Mithraea are dated to the early 2nd century. There are a handful of inscriptions that date to the early 2nd century, but the vast majority of texts are dated after AD 140. Now, Mithra was not born of a virgin, he was born of a rock. Nowhere in the New Testament is Jesus described as having been born in a cave. Mithras didn't sacrifice himself, he killed a bull. Now, we don't know anything about the death of Mithras, thus we certainly don't know anything about a resurrection. Thus, the idea of Mithras versus Jesus seems to be quite a bit over-exaggerated. And this rite, this bull sacrifice or terabolium with the pouring of blood, is reported in the 2nd century AD. The next ancient that we will look at is Osiris. We will delve into the Osiris-Jesus comparisons. Now, there are many Google searches seeking out the comparison of Jesus and Osiris. They think that in terms of the story of Osiris, Jesus just copied it. Osiris is the Egyptian lord of the underworld and judge of the dead. The story of Osiris, Egyptian god of the dead, has left a lasting impression on mankind, but did he influence the Jesus story? Well, details of the death of Osiris are given by Plutarch, who wrote in the 2nd century AD. It is Plutarch's Isis and Osiris that touches on the death of Osiris. This most popular account says that Osiris's brother killed him, chopped him into 14 pieces, and scattered them around the world. Well, the goddess Isis feels compassion for Osiris, so she looks for his body parts to give him a proper burial. Now, she only finds 13 of them, puts them back together, and Osiris is buried. But he doesn't come back to this world. He's given the status of god of the netherworld, a gloomy, shadowy place of semi-consciousness. Does this story sound at all like the story of Jesus to you? Attis is the next ancient god we will briefly cover. Some say that Christians stole the resurrection of Jesus story from Attis. Now, the myth of Attis is much older than Christianity, but the first report we have of a resurrection of Attis comes long after the 1st century AD. The supposed resurrection of Attis doesn't appear until after AD 150, more than a century later than Jesus. Then there is Adonis. By the way, the word Adonis actually has a meaning in our English language. The Adonis meaning is a handsome-looking young man, which is conveyed in the story of Adonis and Aphrodite. Apparently, Adonis was one of only 2 mortals the goddess of love, Aphrodite, ever fell for. Okay, so maybe he was handsome, but did the Jesus story steal from Adonis? Well, the problem with that theory is that Adonis is more than 100 years after Jesus. Pierre Lambrox has shown that there are no indications of a resurrection in the early information we have about Adonis. While there are 4 texts that do speak of his resurrection, they date from the 2nd to 4th centuries AD. What about the Babylonian god Marduk? There are those who profess of similarities between his story and that of Jesus. Well, there's no clear account in antiquity of Marduk even dying, and so a resurrection is even less clear. There's no resurrection of Marduk to even compare to Jesus. Well, what about the famous god Dionysus? Dionysus is the Greek god of wine, although he has also been referred to as Bacchus, the Roman god of wine. Just know, in Dionysus, wine is plentiful. The Dionysus Greek mythology showed him as the strong son of Zeus and Semele, even a hero. As the god of wine, Roman merchants liked Dionysus. Maybe the Dionysus mythology inspired the Jesus story. Some claim that in Jesus, Dionysus is reborn. Well, like Marduk, there was actually no resurrection of Dionysus. Also, some state that Jesus' virgin birth was taken from Dionysus. However, there's no evidence of a virgin birth for Dionysus either. Unlike Dionysus, Jesus was actually born of a virgin. As you can see, the comparison of Jesus and Dionysus does not go very far. Dr. Yamauchi states that as the story goes, Zeus, disguised as a human, fell in love with the princess Semele, the daughter of Cadmus, and she became pregnant. Now Hera, who was Zeus's queen, arranged to have her burned to a crisp, but Zeus rescued the fetus and sewed him into his own thigh until Dionysus was born. So this is not a virgin birth in any sense. What about Buddha or Krishna being born virginal? Sources for the life of Siddhartha Gautama or the Buddha do not appear in written form until 5 centuries after his death, so they're not very historically reliable. You will find many a Gautama painting showing the famous Buddha belly, possibly in a Todaji temple, the Buddha bracelet, a Buddha head, and multiple Buddha teachings around the Tiantan Buddha statue, but none can truthfully claim Buddha was born virginally. According to legend, the mother of Gautama dreamed that he entered her in the form of a white elephant, fully formed. In addition, she had been married for many years prior to this, so she certainly was not a virgin. The Krishna god story is a bit different, but with a similar result. Sri Krishna was born to a mother who already had 7 previous sons, as even his followers readily concede. Though many a Krishna bhajan, a Hindu song of worship, is sung honoring him at a Krishna Jamashtami event or at the Radha Krishna temple, they cannot purport that he was born virginally. What about Zoroastrianism and the stories of Zoroaster being conceived by virgin birth? Well, Zoroaster lived before 1000 BC according to Mary Boyce, or in the 6th century BC according to other scholars. The Zoroastrian religion is estimated to have around 100,000 to 200,000 worshippers worldwide. However, the idea that his mother conceived him by drinking the sacred Haoma drink appears in the Denkard, which dates to the 9th century AD. That's an extremely long time later and far after Jesus. There are just no dying and rising gods that preceded Christianity that parallel Jesus. Check out this video on the proof that Jesus rose from the dead.
These videos take hours and hours to make. Boost my energy up by buying me a coffee in the description section of this video. Thanks so much.
And if you want to make educational videos like this, check out the Pictory link below in the description section. We'll see you in that video over there.